They were stealing. Like, I'm not kidding. They were actually out there stealing. Hello friends! We've been living full-time in an RV for a while now. We've stayed at a bunch of different campgrounds, and today we're going to talk about things you should never do if you want to be a good neighbor at an RV park or campground.
Leave no trace.
So this was a rule that we were used to in the past because we were avid tent campers before we got into full-time RVing. Justin, where does it come from, the leave no trace principle? I know it's a camping thing.
It's like a pack in, pack out. Take nothing but pictures. Something that if you want to enjoy a campground the same way that, everybody else is, you don't want to have to come in and clean up after somebody, have it be trashed. I mean, even to the point of when you're dispersed camping, like making sure you're using like existing fire rings and things like that so there's not like burn marks everywhere. Specifically for RV camping, one of the biggest ones I've seen, oddly, people leaving garbage in the fire rings.
Yeah.
A big one that I've seen. Don't do that. They provide dumpsters for a reason. Sometimes they don't get a chance to check the site before you pull in. And nobody wants to come be hooking up and be smelling your stinky garbage in 100-degree weather in the summer. I generally make sure that we've picked up around the campground as well, making sure that I've left nothing around, especially something that might damage tires or something like that, or just get in the way. But especially I make sure we pick up all of our garbage.
Yeah, make it part of your walk around as you're leaving.
Don't be getting in everybody else's space.
We have stories about this one.
Lots and lots of stories. One of the general rules I've always heard is between the utility pedestal to the next one to your neighbors is generally considered to be kind of your area.
And another general rule is it's typically okay to walk across a vacant campsite, but do not walk across one where there are people camped.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Definitely not.
Some of the other ones I've seen, especially when like it's more open, especially if you're trying to get to like kids like playground or something like that, it's really tempting to want to cut across maybe between somebody and that can generally be taken badly. I would stick to the roads and the paths that are provided for you. Kind of like Paige said, it's empty or something like that. Just because you don't want to be sitting there enjoying your campfire or something and have somebody like sneak behind you, or maybe you have your windows open and you start seeing people walking right next to your rig. It's just not something that's fun.
And we actually have a really good story about somebody who really didn't follow this rule in another way. You remember we were at that one RV park. I'll keep it vague. Names left out to protect the guilty and innocent. We pulled up into a nice end spot at this RV park we were staying at. We were staying there for a week, I believe.
Yep.
It was in a rural area. We were traveling around, and we had paid for a nice premium end lot. And the gentleman right to our campsite, he was on our campsite, right?
No,
he was on our utility side.
Utility side. So he was using the whole area kind of as his front yard, which became evident when, as I was setting up, he was asking some rather pointed questions about when we would be moving along.
He was basically like, hey, when are you guys going to get out of here? Because he wanted to use that empty space when we were gone, like part of his living space, which, fine if we're not there, but it was really tacky to make us feel like we were in his way when we had actually booked that place for the week.
And I get it. He was a long-term resident and stuff there, but it's
really uncomfortable. If you want to be a good neighbor, that is something you should not do.
Just take care of your pets.
So probably the most frequent, unpleasant, rude neighbor behavior we've seen on the roads is simply people not picking up after their dogs when they take them out on walks. You know what I'm talking about, that smelly thing in the grass.
We've stepped in it more than once, unfortunately.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
I would also say the other thing I see a lot is just unleashed pets.
Yeah.
Too, having your dog, just because they're on your site. We actually do walk Ratface. You've probably seen video of him walking around. He's leash trained and everything, and we've had big and small dogs alike take a liking to him and decide that they're going to either play or chase him in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I've had to scoop Ratface off and tell dogs, respect my boundaries before that have been running out. Once they got out, it's a way that you can really be a better neighbor is to make sure you're taking care of them. And things like even making sure if you have them in the rig that they're happy and the temperature's good and things like that. They're not yapping. Yeah, like that one that we saw that was the little one
tied
that
out,
he was chained outside by himself and he was sad, and I was so worried. I think somebody ended up calling the office about him even before we could even do anything, just because there were like coyotes and stuff in the area. We were in the mountains. They could have come and gotten him.
And one thing, and this is even beyond being a good neighbor, one trend, it's a small trend so far, is I'm seeing campgrounds actually banning pets altogether. And that's because of issues with people and their dogs and their pets and stuff. So if you want to be a good neighbor and a good RVer, take care of your pets.
Yeah. Otherwise, all of us are gonna lose, a lot of good parks we could stay at because of the actions of a few people.
Keep your yap shut.
So a lot of RV parks actually have this as a written rule.
Yep.
But even when they don't, generally quiet hours are usually start at 10 or 11 at night and then go to 7 or 8 in the morning, typically, something like that.
Just, people generally, especially if you're a vacationing type of RVer instead of a full-time RVer, you're coming out to enjoy some peace and quiet, some nature, things like that. And for us full-timers, especially me that has a schedule, I need to sleep at some point.
We got 9 to 5.
Yeah. So keeping some quiet hours just is respectful of everybody around you. Most places will give you a little bit longer of a leash, so to speak, on the weekends. Party it up, have some fun. But when it hits midnight, 1 a.m., nobody really wants to be awoken by others, and I'm sure the park owners certainly don't want to get complaints about you.
Yeah, and I mean, not only is it a jerky thing to do, it can get you thrown out of parks.
Yes, your flashing lights aren't as cool as you think they are. We've seen a rather large trend, usually in fifth wheels and toy haulers, of not even just like LED strips or even color-changing ones to illuminate at night, but ones that have programmable like flash sequences and go with music and things like that. And the really annoying trend is I've seen lots of people just leave them on overnight when they leave, just constantly. And I find it particularly annoying, and maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine, but like trying to sleep at night and you have a blue light coming through a window, just boop, 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 which we had actually at a recent resort, is not that much fun.
Well, and we were even at an RV park, one of the ones we really like, that's a dark sky park. It's right near a dark sky area. You couldn't see the stars because somebody had like a boom, 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 boom light going.
Yep, so. It was fairly bright. Keep your lights off if you don't need them. Just because your manufacturer put a bunch of pre-programmed light sequences on your rig doesn't mean you have to use them.
And you bring up a good point, that sometimes you can use exterior lights, and there are ways to use them when you need them. Like, for example, if we know we're going to be out after dark, we have like a lit porch light.
Yeah, I keep a low one on that doesn't get in everybody's face.
Doesn't flash, there's not music.
And so, if you're out chilling and partying to music and you want your flash and light going, go right ahead, but not the rest of us don't need to see it 24/7.
Yeah, especially not during that quiet time.
Just watch your speed limit.
So this is another rule that is sometimes written at campgrounds, but not all campgrounds. Basically, if you're driving around the park roads, you don't know, there's going to be like kids around, people walking dogs, people on bikes, people outdoors, and then, other people in large RVs, right? Yeah. So even if you're in your Toad and you're coming back from the end of a long day, don't be driving 30 miles an hour down these little roads that the kids are on.
Yeah, most parks we go to usually have something between 5 and 10 miles an hour posted. Yeah. That's especially important at dark. I know most people are inside, but we've had more than one incident where I've almost run over a child on a bike because they were darting in and out in the dark with no lights.
And thankfully, because you were going like 7 miles an hour, you were able to stop.
Yep, but I've also almost been clipped by people doing 20 to 30 miles an hour through some of the roads because they're probably just used to it and they think it's safe, and it's not really.
No. So if there isn't a posted speed limit, it probably depends on the actual park and the size of the roads and all that.
10 miles an hour.
But 10 miles an hour is probably a good rule of thumb if they don't have anything on their guidelines. Always defer to the park's guidelines first. Be a good parent.
We do not have children, but one thing that we've seen, and I really appreciate people taking their kids out, seeing the sights, having good times with them, spending time with them, seeing really cool things, you still have to parent them.
Yes. Yeah, don't expect the rest of the RV park to take care of your kids, because not only is that inconsiderate to your neighbors, it's actually really dangerous to your kids.
So I've seen lots of great parents and they're spending time with them, even letting their kids run wild in, supervised ways, up and around, and sometimes annoyingly, but
like harmless annoying. Yeah. That's okay. That's okay.
So we were at one park in the West. I'll say that's as far as I'll say it.
Yeah.
But we were astounded by the behavior of some of these children that we were dealing with, up to in the fact that these children were stealing.
They were stealing. I'm not kidding. They were actually out there stealing. Justin mentioned they've been playing the road after dark and had almost gotten hit by him and many other people.
Yeah, I had toys in our yard, so to speak. From them, they were just all over the place.
They were running across and screaming and all the stuff we've talked about. They broke almost every rule in this just with the kids. And I was doing my laundry one day, and one of the housekeeping people that worked at the resort, I was talking to her. I think she was was really upset about the kids, and she was actually venting to me about them because the people who owned the park weren't doing enough about it.
Yep.
That's part of why I don't want to say, because I don't want to get her in trouble for this, but they had been stealing things off her cart, and they broke things from the laundry room. They had been stealing taps and things from the actual laundry room sinks, and she was having to repair them because they started to steal from the campground facilities.
Yeah. And so that's another thing is, like, if you, number one, they should have been kicked out. And
I think they were on their last strike for what it's worth.
If you're parenting, your kids could actually get you to get kicked out of a park.
Kicked out.
And if you don't, you're actually potentially giving that park a very bad name.
Yeah.
Be courteous with your vehicle.
So going back to the park roads, it's not just the speed that you're going at that can cause a problem to the other people who are staying there. It's also where you park.
Yeah. So aside from the fact of using, supposedly empty spaces to park and things like that, we more than once had to have people move because they thought that space was going to be empty for a little bit longer. But even just having your truck out in the road, having, parallel parking in a road that's not wide enough for it. I've had some really dicey times moving through some narrow roads because people had their trucks and their cars out in the road.
And we don't have the biggest rig in the world. I've seen people who have fifth wheels and some of the bigger buses actually almost hit people's trucks and things, and have to call the office, and have stuff moved because they can't get out of their space when they're trying to check out, and they're trying to get checked out on time, and there's like a late fee associated with late checkout. Like, it can get really crazy. Yep.
So just be courteous with it, especially the newer parks are all made so you can have your truck there. I get some of the smaller ones, you might have to park in like an overflow parking type of situation so that you're not in everybody else's way, but trust me, you may think you're okay, but everybody else is going to be giving you the side eye. Be courteous with your generator.
This is something that we actually ran into well before we were RVers. We were tent camping, actually.
We're near Bowling Green, Kentucky for the total eclipse several years ago, and we were tent camping, but there were a number of RVers kind of interspersed because this was just at a distillery actually, and they were
boondocking. There were no hookups or anything.
Yep. And we had a great time. Sometimes it was annoying having so many RVs kind of close to a tent camper. That was kind of on the distillery for setting it up like that.
Because they were the generators.
But yeah, so they had their generator on all night, and actually what was probably the most annoying is actually it was just this one family left it on during the eclipse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a nice quiet Honda generator or something like that. It was just a no muffler, open generator, just going off as loud as can be. And it was really annoying.
Yeah, so don't be that person.
Yep.
It's not to say that you can't use your generator, and there aren't times. And if you're in an RV park around other people, you're probably going to have hookups. But there are even times when we went to our very first Harvest Host, there was another couple staying with us. Not with us, but they were next to us. It was hot during the day, so we both ran our generators a little bit when we needed it.
Yep. And then when we were done, both of us shut them off so we could have a nice quiet night.
But we actually kind of discussed that with them.
Yep. Just kind of checked with them, made sure that they were okay, because they were in something smaller.
I think was it a travel trailer?
It was some sort of travel trailer, and they could hear more than we could.
Yes.
So we wanted to make sure that they were okay.
Yep. Yeah, so when in doubt, ask the park or ask your neighbor, or if you're staying at a Cracker Barrel or something like that, ask them.
Yep. Be courteous with your hookups. So one of the real interesting things, and we talked a little bit about this, where you kind of own between one utility pole to the next. So you have to go over to what is your neighbor's campsite. So they could be out there and stuff like that. I try to be courteous about that. So I don't go out there when I don't have anything to do. I keep all of our hoses and cables and stuff kind of away and tidied, usually underneath our slide, so that they're not tripping over it and whatnot. And also, like, basic things. Make sure your sewer connection is tight so that when you dump, they don't get a nice whiff of whatever you're putting down there.
You have a nice adapter, right, that helps you? As I know you had to buy that because not all the connections were good.
Yeah, so generally a lot of parks are requiring threaded adapters now so that they are tight. For ones that are damaged or straight, they do require either like the rubber donuts, or there's several other adapters that you can get to have an airtight seal. Again, because nobody wants to be sitting outside enjoying the sun and then just get a whiff of their neighbor that's dumping something.
I'll link it in the description.
Yeah. Otherwise, just be courteous and try to stay out of your neighbor's way.
So those are our pet peeves. What are yours?
So put them down below, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.